Hello and welcome to this After Effects Certification Preparation series of videos. I'm Luisa Winters. In this movie, I want to talk about Objective 2.2c, which is configuring application preferences. We're going to talk about appearance, autosave, grids and guides, media disk and cache, memory previews, and other things. So let's get us started. If we want to open preferences here in After Effects on Windows, go on to Edit, Preferences, and we're going to go to Appearance. On the Mac, go to After Effects, Preferences, Appearance. And now, once the preferences open up, you will be able to change the appearance. For example, you can use label colors for layer handles and paths, etc., etc. And you can, this one is important, you can cycle the mask colors. So if you don't have this selected, every time you draw a mask, it's going to be the same color. While if this is selected, you can have different colors every time you draw a mask. You can change the brightness of the interface. I don't like it brighter. You can affect the label colors by this brightness slider. You can also change the brightness of the highlight color, and you can make it brighter or darker. If you click on the default buttons, then it goes back to what it ships with, which is default. So let's go ahead and also change the focus indicators. See, this is that rectangle on the outside of that word sample. You can make it brighter or darker. I really like the defaults, so I'm going to leave it at defaults. There are other things that I want to show you in here that you may want to pay attention to. Under General, for example, you can change the path, point, and handle sizes. So you can make them bigger. They don't have to be 5 pixels. I can change it to 15. You can show or hide the tooltips. So the tooltips are just the little pop-ups that appear when you hover your mouse on top of something, like say the selection tool. Do you see how it gives me a pop-up telling me, oh, this is the selection tool and its shortcut is the letter V? So that would be a tooltip. If I go back to my preferences, general, there are other things in here that you may want to change just for your display. For example, you can default the interpolation to linear. We're going to talk about this a little bit later on. We're talking about a newer version of After Effects. This one is important. Center the anchor point in new shape layers. We're going to discuss this when we talk about shape layers. And you can also use the system color picker as opposed to Adobe's. So, I would recommend that you go over these things and see what's what. Autosave is super important, right? So how many autosaves do you want? And how often do you want for the autosave to go? If you are in a system that crashes constantly, I am going to suggest that you lower that number to something like 5 minutes, and then you have a higher project version than 5. And we already discussed grids and guides, but we need to talk about media and disk cache, we need to talk about memory, and we need to talk about previews. So let's go ahead and go back onto After Effects. And now I'd like to go to media and disk cache. Remember, on the Mac is under After Effects Preferences, Media and Disk Cache. And once the preferences open, in here you can see where After Effects is saving that media cache and what the maximum cache size is going to be. A lot of people choose a folder that is on an external drive, usually an SSD drive outside of the system. Otherwise, especially if you're working on a laptop, your C drive, your laptop drive becomes full very, very quickly, and you won't know why. And yeah, it's all those cache files that are accumulating in there. And you can empty the disk cache from in here. All right, so the conform media cache as well. Notice that this one is going to my home folder, app data, local temp, and this one is going to my home folder, app data, roaming, Adobe Common. Common meaning that is going to be not just for After Effects, but for other Adobe applications as well. So that's the database, and here is the cache, and notice that it's going to the same place. And you can clean the database and cache by clicking in here as well, and that's just going to do a cleanup of those folders. It's going to delete those files for you. This is a good thing to do for troubleshooting. So if you're having issues with After Effects or Premiere Pro for that matter, I would go into these folders and know that you don't have to remember where these folders are. All you have to do is go to the preferences and there's the path right there, right? So, and you can just delete them from there. So if I were to delete mine, and I'm going to do that now, I would go to my C drive, users, Luisa, app data. And by the way, if you don't see the app data, go to View and then Show, and make sure that Hidden Items is checked. Make sure that you can see the hidden items. This is for Windows, obviously. So App Data, and then I'm going to go to Local, and now Temp, and I have a ton of things in here, right? So I can select them all, delete them, and that's going, look at this, over 60 gigs, right? So right now it's telling me, oh, I can't delete this one because it's been used by another program. Yeah, I have After Effects open, so I'm just gonna skip that, and it's just recycling all these things. So I'm just going to skip all of these. I'm gonna close out of here and continue with my preferences here. You can write XMP, Extensible Metadata Protocol, that's an Adobe thing, IDs on files on import or not. That's off by default. You can also create layer markers from footage XMP metadata. So if you need layer markers and that you created in a different program, then you can bring them in by simply clicking in here. All right, let's go to video preview. You can enable the Mercury transmit, which means that if you have a DV device connected, you can actually send this video stream outside of your computer monitor. And you can change the settings, hardware is supported or not, 24p conversion. If you're doing a 3:2 pull down, then you can use that particular conversion method. This is really outside of the scope of the test, so I'm going to deselect this. You know, you could video preview during the render queue output. This is the one that is really in scope. So if you're rendering in the queue and you find that it's too slow, it's using too many system resources or whatever, you can deselect this video preview and then the video won't play while it's rendering. Alrighty, let's go on to memory and performance. I have 64 gigabytes of RAM installed in this system, and most of them are going to Adobe applications. So I have 58 gigabytes of RAM reserved for that, and for everything else, I have 6. I can raise this number so that less is available for Adobe programs, but of course, I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to lower that number to as low as the preferences let me. Now, I can show the memory usage, so you can see how much After Effects is using and how much Team Projects is using, which is absolutely nothing because I'm not using Team Projects. You can enable multi-frame rendering, so the CPU reserved for other applications could be just 10%, and multi-frame rendering, it allows After Effects to render multiple frames at the same time. So obviously you can see how much faster this would be. So this is for preview and the render queue. So depending on the speed of your CPU, this can actually increase your performance quite a bit. If you're having issues with audio, go to the audio hardware and you can change how you want for the output to be. Right now, I have my speakers from my laptop being the output, but I also have a Yamaha connected to this, which is connected to speakers, and that acts as a line out. So I could use the Yamaha as an out. So, you know, I also have a Scarlett box, a 6i6 connected via USB, and I also have speakers connected to that, so I could change these to whatever I want. For now, I'm just going to leave it at the system default. There are other preferences in here that you should look at. Previews is one of them. You can change the adaptive resolution to be whatever it is. You can also check on the GPU information. I have an NVIDIA RTX A3000. I have a wonderful Dell laptop that it's just unbelievable. It's the 5770, and I recommend it to anyone. And no, I'm not getting paid to say that. You can also show internal wireframes as you do a fast preview or not. And you can change the viewer quality, the zoom quality, to more accurate or faster. You can also change the color management from faster to more accurate to even more accurate. So, you can actually take charge of how your system is displaying things. You can also change the composition switches so that it automatically enables frame blending and motion blur rendering. And this is kind of important because sometimes we forget to turn those on. While this is just going to do it automatically. So kind of important. You can mute the audio when the preview is not real time. I actually like doing that, so I'm going to leave that on. And you can also start caching frames when idle. So, how long do you want it to be idle before it starts happening? The default is 8 seconds. And the cache frames could be around the current time indicator, from the start of the range, from whatever. And you can also change what the cache range will be, if it's going to be just the work area or the work area extended by the current time. So the work area and where the current time indicator is, that's the playhead. If we go to display, we can tell it to display the motion paths or not. And if it's going to display the motion path, by how long. You can display thumbnails in the project panel or not. And you can also show the rendering progress in the panel and flow chart. And of course, you can read the rest of these here. They're kind of important. So if I were you, I would just look through all of these, not necessarily only for the test, but for your own information, and so that you can make the performance of After Effects a little bit better to suit your needs and how you want to work. And this brings me to the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.